So I want to do a video for you that's a little time sensitive, and for some of you it may already be a little too late. But in the past I've shown you how I transform my hard red clay with iron ore rocks in it, just absolutely terrible soil, to try to plant in and try to work. And I've shown you in the past how I have transformed that to a black, beautiful, composty soil, goodness, topsoil, whatever. And I did that mainly through wood chips, but not exclusively wood chips, and I'll try to chase that rabbit in just a minute. But what I've done in the last few years, since I have access to a neighbor that's a tree trimmer, I've had him come dump multiple loads of wood chips. I put them on my blackberries when they were out in the ground, when I had my blackberry patch out there. Of course, now my blackberries are in containers, these blue containers back here. So I mulched the blackberries heavily. I'm talking about a foot deep, 18 inches deep, heavily. And even the rows, mulched the rows also. But I came and did some garden spots. This is one of the garden spots, and right now I've got containers in it, but you can see the dirt is covered by wood chips. And I did that last year, showed you that last year. But some of you have complained you don't have access to wood chips. You just can't find them. I don't know, there's usually, if you run around, there's somebody trimming a tree somewhere, but you still, many of you find it hard to find wood chips. Let me address that first. If you see somebody trimming trees in your area, and they're everywhere, it's not uncommon to see somebody trimming trees. Just drive up, pull up, see if you can find the head guy and say, you need a place to dump your chips? I've got a place, and hopefully it's just right down the road. If you tell him it's 10 miles away, he's probably not going to be interested unless you say, I'll give you some money for gas. But if you can find somebody trimming trees, that's the best way, and just get them to come by and dump you a load of wood chips. Barring wood chips, you can use hay or leaves. And the reason I say this is time sensitive, as I'm making this, I don't know when you're watching it, but as I'm making this video, it is fall. It is the end of November, right after Thanksgiving. And in our area, leaves are just now really beginning to fall. We had a warm year, and it really just didn't get cold until just now. So the trees are starting to turn, and really, really nice. Some of the best color I've ever seen out here, I think. And so leaves are going to start falling. Well, what I used to do 30 years ago, maybe more than that, maybe, yeah, probably 30 years ago, 35. I would take my little old 66 Ford truck, and I would leave work. I'd drive around the city. I'm outside the city, but I would drive around the city that is closest to me, and for no other reason but to gather up leaves. Well, I didn't gather up just any leaves. When I would drive up, I would look at the trees, see what they were. Whether pine, I didn't really care for pine needles. So if it was oak or most any other kind of leaf, I would look at the bags, and if they loaded up sticks and Coke cans and everything else in the bag, I'd leave it alone. But if it was a bag that looked like it was pristine leaves, I would jump on it and I'd throw it in the back of that truck. So I would drive around and I would load that old truck down with leaves, mound them up. They were 2 feet above the cab, and tie them down with rope so I didn't lose anything, didn't litter, and drag those home. And some people now I've seen will leave them in the bag. If you don't have a place to put them right now, you can just leave them in the bag. Really need to be a little wet to help them to decompose, but just leave them in the bag and they will become leaf mold and compost. You know, it may take a little while, but I would come home and spread them on my garden, and I mean 12 inches deep, 1.5 feet deep, whatever. And at that time I had one of the best gardens I've ever had. I had tomatoes that were huge, 12, 14 feet long, vines, and just really made some good tomatoes. So that's what you can do with leaves, and that's one reason it's time sensitive, is that leaves are falling right now. But it's also time sensitive in that if you do get wood chips or hay, then you can spread them out on your garden. But it's best to do that now and let them start mulching down, composting down before springtime when you want to start your garden. Now you don't want to disc them in. You just want to leave them on top of the soil, and they will do their thing. They will start bringing earthworms up. They will keep it moist, and they will transform your soil into a black, composty beautifulness. That's what I call it. So you ought to try that. But again, now's really the time to do that. If you've got a garden spot that you would like to garden next year, man, pile that thing up with either leaves, hay, or wood chips if you can get them. I like wood chips. Main reason I like wood chips, they break down quicker than what you think. As quick or quicker than leaves. But the wood chips don't blow off. And if you're in a high wind area, you could have trouble keeping your leaves where you want them. The wood chips don't blow off. Now they do float. So if you're on an angle on a slope and you've got a lot of rain, you can lose some wood chips. I have lost a bunch of wood chips down grade. So just keep that in mind. Wood chips don't blow as a general rule, but they will float. But now is the time to start covering your garden with a compostable material. Hay is going to start being plentiful as the farmers feed hay to their cows. But I got to warn you, that hay is heavy. It's heavy. You put a pitchfork in some wet hay that's got pee and poop and water in it, stuff like that, that hay is heavy. Leaves aren't heavy. If you want something that's not near as much work, go get some bagged leaves. I mean, go around, drive around and find some bagged leaves. Find somebody that's got a lawn service that's out raking leaves, and just tell him hey, just pile them out there on my front yard. I'll get them. But that's a great way to do it. Leaves are just as good, I think, in creating good soil as wood chips are. And I've shown you what wood chips can do. Wood chips can absolutely transform your soil. So do that. Start looking around for something you can grab and put on your soil. They're just it's black gold. People throw them away. Cities and municipalities go and drive around and grab them and throw them in something. Some of them compost them. Some of them just throw it in the landfill. But that is black gold. I don't rake leaves, but do that. Get you some leaves. Right now is the best time of leaves. Now up north, the leaves have already fallen probably, and that's why I say it's a little late for some of you. This being time sensitive, it could be a little late if you're up north. But if you're down south, leaves are probably just now starting to fall. You've got a golden opportunity. That golden leaves turn into black gold when they mulch down. Do that. Leave them on your garden. Leave them in the bags. It'd be best if you could maybe cut a hole in the bag and spray some water in there to start that process mulching down. That water will help that. But either way, leaves. People are throwing them away. Go get you some. Time sensitive. You're on the clock. Go do it. All right. All right. Go do it. We're gone.